Okay, hello everyone, hope you are in good health. Last lecture we finished chapter 4 in which we drove the goods market equilibrium condition, aggregate demand equals aggregate supply, which is the same as desired national saving equal desired investment. And we showed this graphically, so you are advised to return to the slides for this part because it's important. And we also introduced chapter 7, the asset market, and we now move to its section 7.3 in this chapter, slide 12. Just make sure that not all sections in the book are covered in these slides, so you are only required by the sections shown in the slides. Specifically, section 7.1 is cancelled because you already covered it in money and banking course. So in this section, the demand for money, we'll discuss the factors that affect the demand for money. What's the demand for money? Is the quantity of monetary assets people want to hold in their portfolios. Money demand depends on properties that we discussed last lecture: expected return, risk, and liquidity. Money is the most liquid asset because it can be used directly for transactions, but at the same time it pays the lowest return. So if it's currency, it pays zero interest. If it's checkable deposit, it pays a very low interest rate. So in both cases, it gives you a low return. So people's demand for money makes a trade-off between liquidity and return. If they want high liquidity, they will hold money, but they will, on the other hand, give or take a low return on money. So this is the trade-off between liquidity and return. The key macroeconomic variables that affect money demand are price level, real income, and interest rate. These are the three main variables that affect the demand for money. They are not the only variables, but these are the key main variables. So let's see how each one of them affect the money demand. First, the price level. The higher the price level, the more money you need for transactions. If you want to buy something, its price has doubled. You will now need double the money to get this good. For example, if it's a t-shirt, it's costing now 100 LE instead of 50, so you will need 100 LE instead of 50. Your money demand will double. So the higher the price level, the more money you need for transactions. In most countries, prices over time gets higher. So for example, in the US, prices are 10 times as high today as they were 65 years ago. So it takes 10 times as much money for equivalent transactions. So people now demand 10 times as much money as before. Nominal money demand is thus proportional to the price level. When the price level doubles, the nominal money demand also doubles. So it's a proportional one-to-one increase. And the second variable is real income. So the more transactions you conduct, the more money you need. And what determines the number of transactions you do is the money you have. So real income is the primary determinant of the number of transactions you conduct. If you have higher income, you will make more transactions in number and in amount. So your purchases are generally more and generally has a higher amount. So your money demand will rise as your income gets higher. So, however, money demand does not increase proportionally with real income. This is because higher income individuals use money more efficiently, so they do not want to hold. If they have now double of the income, they do not want to hold as double of money, because, as we said before, money has the lowest return, so they also want to hold other assets that pay them higher return. Also, another reason, when countries get richer, have higher incomes, there will be higher financial sophistication, so people can use other financial instruments than money, such as credit cards. So this will lessen their need to demand money. So money demand increases with the increase in income, but it's not a proportional increase. It's not one-to-one increase. When real income doubles, money demand less than doubles. The third factor is the interest rates. We differentiate between two kinds of interest rates: the interest rates on non-monetary assets, such as bonds, and the interest rate on money, such as a checkable deposit. We said that money can take the form of currency or checkable deposits. So currency has no interest rate, but checkable deposit usually pay a very low interest rate. So the interest rate on money, this is the interest rate on checkable deposit. The first kind of interest rates on non-monetary assets, such as bonds, anything that's not money, such as bonds, when it increases, this will lessen the demand for money, because people will now, the interest rates on bonds rise from 5% to 10%, people want to hold more bonds and less money, so their demand for money decreases. So it's a negative relation. The interest rate on money, on the other hand, when it increases, this will increase the money demand. If your checkable deposit is now paying you higher interest, this means that you will want to hold more money, because we said that money gives you a higher liquidity. Money is the most liquid asset. We will, for simplicity, assume that all non-monetary assets, there are many non-monetary assets and each pay different interest rate, but we will assume that all of these interest rates are just one interest rate that we will denote by I. So I, when we say I, this is the interest rate on all non-monetary assets, because often interest rates usually often move together. When one type of interest rate increase, all other types increase. So we'll assume we just have one nominal interest rate on non-monetary assets I. The money demand function then takes the form in equation 7.1, MD equals P times L of y and I. L, this is a function of the two variables y and I. MD is the nominal money demand for the aggregate economy. P is the price level. L is the money demand function, which is a function of real income or output Y, and I is the nominal interest rate on the non-monetary assets. Okay, and the nominal money demand, in the money demand equation from our discussion, we say that it's proportional to the price level. They rise proportionally, while a rise in Y increases money demand, and we see that the increase is less than proportion, and a rise in I reduces money demand, because I is the interest rate on non-monetary assets such as bonds. So when the interest rates we set on bonds increase, I will demand more bonds and less money. And we exclude from equation 7.1 IM, which is the interest rate on money, such as the interest rate on checkable deposits, because it does not vary much, so we generally ignore it. So an alternative expression for the money demand function is MD equals P times L of Y R plus pi E. So instead of writing I, in this equation 7.2, we write down I as R plus expected inflation. And why we write it down like this? Because we know from chapter 2 that R, the real interest rate, is the nominal I minus expected inflation. So I equals R plus pi E. If you rearrange terms, then the nominal interest rate equals the real interest rate plus expected inflation rate. So a rise in R or pi E will reduce the money demand. So the relation here is negative with MD. When R, because this is the real interest rate on what? On non-monetary assets such as bonds. When this R increases, this means that the return on non-monetary assets, the real return on non-monetary assets rises, so people will demand less money. So the relation is inverse. What about pi E? Also the relation is inverse with MD, which means that when expected inflation rises, the money demand decreases, because when people are expecting more inflation, they demand less money and will demand other assets that maintain their purchasing power, such as gold and real estate, what we call inflation hedges. These are assets that maintain their purchasing power and not money. So when people are expecting that inflation will be higher, they will demand less money. So the relation is inverse. Yet another expression for this relation is shown in equation 7.3, in which we, instead of MD, we write it down as MD over P to get to be the real money demand. Any nominal term, when we divide by the price level, it returns to be the real variable. So here MD over P is the real money demand, equals L as a function of Y and R plus pi E. And this is equation 7.3 for the real money demand MD over P. So there are other factors also that affect money demand other than the variables we saw, for the money demand, affecting money demand, the price level, the interest rate, and the real income. We have also other factors that affect money demand. These include wealth and risk. So wealth, a rise in wealth may increase money demand, but not by much. So the rise in wealth of the society will make people demand more money, but as we saw, as we said before, money demand has a low return, so people, when they become wealthier, they will demand more money, but not by much, because money has the lowest return. Also, risk affect money demand, because increased riskiness of non-monetary assets may increase money demand. So times of erratic inflation bring increased risk to money, so money demand declines. So we have here, when there are risk for stocks, non-monetary assets, we said these are assets other than money, such as stocks and bonds. When stocks becomes very risky, people may increase their demand for money. Also, the money itself can be more risky, as in times of very high inflation, this will increase the risk for holding money, and accordingly money demand declines. So we have two types of risk on non-monetary assets. When it increases, this increase money demand, because people will resort to money instead of the riskier assets. And money itself, when its risk increases, this will decrease the demand for money. And when does the risk for money increase? When there are periods of very high inflation, so people will demand less money and will resort to other assets. Other factors also include liquidity of alternative assets. So deregulation, competition, and innovation have given other assets more liquidity and reducing the demand for money. When other alternative assets now become more liquid than before, this will reduce the demand for money. Also, payment technologies such as credit cards, ATMs, and other financial innovations will reduce money demand. When people are now having credit cards and they can withdraw money from ATMs, their demand for money will be lower. And this is a summary table for all the factors we have discussed. You have to make sure you can read this table well and understand how the effect of each variable on money demand, so how money demand responds to the increase in each of these variables, and to make sure you understand the reason written in this table. So this summary table is very important. The last section we will cover in this chapter 7 is the asset market equilibrium, and we will discuss this section, asset market equilibrium and aggregation assumptions. So we'll aggregate all assets into two main categories, money and non-monetary assets. So money includes currency and checking accounts. Money pays interest rate of IM, and its supply is fixed at M capital. While non-monetary assets, we said that non-monetary assets include any asset that's not money, such as stocks, bond, and land, etc. It pays an interest rate, the non-monetary asset pays an interest rate of I, which is equal to R plus pi E. And the supply of non-monetary assets is fixed at NM. Asset market equilibrium occurs when the quantity of money supplied equals the quantity of money demanded. So we saw in chapter 4 the goods market equilibrium, in chapter 3 the labor market equilibrium. In this chapter we see asset market equilibrium. So the asset market equilibrium occurs, and as we said, when Q of the money supplied, the quantity of money supplied, equals quantity of money demanded. MD plus NMD is the total nominal wealth of an individual. MD, subscript D, means demand. So the demand for money and the demand NMD, the demand for non-monetary assets, equals the total nominal wealth of an individual. An individual's wealth is divided into money and non-money. His or her portfolio is composed of these two main assets, money and non-money. So the summation of both equals the wealth of an individual. If you aggregate this at the level of the economy as a whole, then the aggregate nominal wealth of the economy, equation 7.6, is equal to M capital D, the demand for money, the aggregate demand for money, plus NMD, the aggregate non-monetary demand. This is, as we said, this is the aggregation for all the individuals in the economy. So equation 7.6 is the aggregate demand for money and non-monetary assets. In equation 7.7, also the supply of assets equals the aggregate nominal wealth, the supply of money, which is M, capital M, and supply of non-monetary assets, NM. This is the aggregate nominal wealth of the economy. So aggregate nominal wealth is equal to the demand and is equal to the supply. So from subtracting equation 7.7 from equation 7.6 gives MD minus M plus NMD minus NM equals 0. Why? Because both equations are equal. Aggregate nominal wealth is common in equation 7.6 and equation 7.7. So when you subtract 7.7 from 7.6, you will get equation 7.8. MD minus M in a bracket plus NMD minus NM is equal to 0, because both are equal to the aggregate nominal wealth of the economy. Whether you regard it from the demand side or the supply side, both are equal when you aggregate for both the non-monetary assets and the money M. Both are equal to the nominal wealth in the economy. So we get equation 7.8. What's MD minus M? This is the excess demand for money, because MD is the demand for money, and what's M? This is the supply of money. So MD minus M, this is the excess demand for money. For example, if MD is 100 and M is 70, the excess demand here is 30. So it's the difference between the demand for money and the supply of money. So we get back to the equation MD minus M, this is the excess demand for money, plus excess demand for non-monetary assets, and MD minus NM equals 0. This is what we get from the last equation we saw. The summation of both the excess demand for money plus the excess demand for non-monetary asset equal to 0. What does this mean? That if money supply equals money demand, MD equals M, non-monetary asset supply must equal non-monetary asset demand, and MD must equal NM. The non-monetary asset demand equals the non-monetary asset supply. Then the entire market is in equilibrium. What does this mean also? It means that if we have an equilibrium in the money market, when the quantity of money demand equals the quantity of money supplied, MD minus M equals 0, there is no excess demand for money because the money market is in equilibrium, we guarantee that also the non-monetary asset market will be in equilibrium because NMD minus NM will also be equal to 0. So the whole asset market will be in equilibrium just only if the money supply equals money demand. So how to express the asset market equilibrium condition? We just see that when money the quantity of money supplied equal quantity of money demanded, this will guarantee that the whole asset market will be in equilibrium. So how to represent this in an equation? M over P, this is the real money supply, because when I divide the money supply M by the price level, this will give me the real money supply, equals L. Remember the L function, the L of Y R plus pi E. What's the L function? This is the real money demand function. So equation 7.9 says that M over P, the real money supply, equals the real money demand. So this is the asset market equilibrium condition. M is determined by the central bank. This is the amount of money supplied, so it's determined by the central bank. Pi E will assume it to be fixed. What's pi E? This is the expected inflation. Assume it to be fixed. The labor market determines the level of employment. Using employment in the production function determines Y. So I can get a value of Y from the labor market, because we saw from the production function in chapter 3, Y is linked by the production function to the amount of labor and amount of capital. So when I know the amount of labor to be used, I can get the value of Y from the production function. And given this Y, I can determine the R. From the goods market equilibrium condition, I can determine the R. So in the equation 7.9, all the variables are known except one variable, which is the price level. So the asset market equilibrium condition determines the price level. If we rearrange the terms in equation 7.9 to get price at the left hand side, we get equation 7.10, price equals M over L as a function of Y and R plus pi E. This means that the price level is the ratio of the nominal money supply M to the real money demand, because L, as we said, L is the real money demand function. So the price level is the ratio of M, the nominal money supply, over L. What's L? The real money demand. So for example, doubling the money supply would double the price level, and this is a very well-known economic relationship. When we increase the money supply, the price level increases proportionally. So when M doubles, the money supply doubles, this will double the price level P. So here in this slide, we show the asset market equilibrium graphically. The real money supply is the vertical line. So it's drawn as fixed at 1,000. This is the amount determined by the central bank, so it's fixed. while the real money demand is the downward sloping demand because we are drawing it against the real interest rate. So the vertical axis, we are plotting both money supply and money demand against the interest rate. So the real money demand will be downward sloping because when interest rate on non-monetary assets, which is R, increases, the demand for money decreases. So it's a downward sloping curve. The equilibrium point is point A, the intersection between real money supply and real money demand.